Welcome to the Unofficial Steelers Podcast, the podcast so unofficial it doesn't have a home. Here's your host, from In Hindsight, Nathan Heintz. From Steelers Nation Australia, Mark Davison. And from State of the Steelers, Daniel J. Here we go.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Unofficial Steelers Podcast. I'm your host, Daniel J. from State of the Steelers. Alongside with me, Nathan Heintz of In Hindsight. I'm sorry. Nathan, how you doing?
Whatever that is. Never heard of that one. In Hinesfield.
Hey man, that should be your sister's channel if you ever get one.
Unbelievable. yeah, in Hinesfield. Yeah, you're right. Good to be on the channel. Ladies and gentlemen, in the comments, if you guys see anything different about the presentation of this show, Daniel's trying to switch platforms in the sense of not YouTube will always be here, but platforms in the sense of how we go live on here. So that's why it's kind of the basic setup for this episode.
Yeah, this setup is going to be pretty basic just because I finally got out of basically, long story short, we use StreamYard, or I use StreamYard, and I had it for a year. And, I've heard a lot of good things from a place called Streamlabs. And so I'm going to try to figure that out, see if it's worth it. If not, I'll have StreamYard up and going with a more typical type of background and things of that nature. Yeah. But with all that being said, today, what we're going to be talking about is a way too early roster prediction. Who's a lock? Who's not? We'll go position by position, name the players that are currently on the roster, who we think are going to continue to stay, and who we think is going to possibly find their way out of the building. And so let's start off first and foremost with the most important position on the team, especially on the offensive side, quarterback. Pittsburgh Steelers have 3 quarterbacks on the roster. They have another one they have invited to camp in Hunter Johnson. They have Kenny Pickett, Mitch Trubisky, and Tanner Morgan. And I think that the team is going to possibly go into the season with 3 quarterbacks, and that all 3 of these QBs make the team. What are your thoughts on the quarterback position, and what do you think as far as who's a lock and who's not?
What was the 4th guy's name? Hunter Johnson?
Hunter Johnson out of Northwestern.
Whoever that is.
He was actually out of high school, was the top recruit in the United States as quarterback, but he went to Clemson. I guess he was behind Trevor Lawrence, so then he transferred out of there, went to Northwestern, just never really made a name for himself.
Well, yeah. Your wife seems very excited about Hunter.
Yeah. She's excited about any quarterback.
God.
It is what it is.
Unbelievable. Hunter Johnson, see you later. That guy's not even going to be on the practice squad. So he's going to be out of there. He's just going to be a 4th guy in camp that they can do whatever they want to do with. And then they'll just roll the season with 2 quarterbacks as they normally do. Tanner Morgan on the practice squad.
Got you. Well, Tanner Morgan is a guy that got a lot of interest. The Pittsburgh Steelers had to pay him a pretty good amount to get him to come in. I don't know if they want to try to if they're going to stash him. He did take number 2. He is number 2. So that means goodbye, Mason Rudolph.
Goodbye.
And so
don't come back.
I'm sure the wife would like that one as well. But here's my thing when it comes to the quarterback position. When it comes to 2024, the Steelers only have 1 quarterback on the roster right now that is signed through there, and that's Kenny Pickett. Mitch Trubisky is going to be a free agent this year, after this season. And, I think he's a guy that's going to want to go out there and try to find work somewhere else. And maybe perhaps give himself an opportunity to be a starter in another place.
Hey, he might get one more chance next year.
I agree. And so with that being said, I think the Steelers aren't going to want to go in with a guy that's not familiar with the playbook or not familiar with anything behind Kenny Pickett. Even if you went with a veteran type quarterback next season, a Mitch Trubisky type of quarterback, that's still going to be a new system they have to learn behind Kenny. And I think you want to have somebody that's been there a minute, somebody who understands the offense, and perhaps somebody that can be the Joshua Dobbs to Ben Roethlisberger when it comes to Kenny Pickett. And, a guy that's going to be there for a while and that they can talk to each other and pick each other's brains. So I think that there's a good possibility that 3 end up making the roster. Not to mention, there's a lot of talk, and I don't think it's gone completely through yet or completely off. But, given the fact of what happened with San Francisco last year and their debacle in the playoffs with their quarterbacks going down by the numbers, that there's a chance the NFL might change some rules and allow for a third quarterback to be suited for the games.
I think they should. I always think they should have been suited, because then what happened? You never know what's going to happen. Having 3 quarterbacks, I think that's how it should be anyway.
100%. I agree. I agree.
Freaking weird, dude, with certain stuff.
I don't like the fact that they allow you to have 53 people on the roster, yet they don't allow you to dress all 53.
Yeah, it makes no sense. Then have it be a 48-man roster, 46, however many it is.
Correct. Yeah. Well, for sure. That's my thoughts on that exactly.
Stupid.
It sure is. So we'll move over to the halfback running back room. At running back, obviously we have Najee Harris and Jalen Warren. Those 2 guys are definite locks. Behind them are Anthony McFarland, Jason Huntley, Master Teague, and a fullback, Monte Potbaum. Now, I will say,
who?
Monte Potbaum.
Potbaum.
Yeah, unless I'm pronouncing that wrong.
Whoever that is.
Pottebaum.
Whoever that is.
On the Steelers website, they have Connor Hayward listed as tight end / fullback. So I don't think that, Monty in this situation, even though he's listed as the only fullback here, I don't think he's definitely a lock. I don't think he's even making the team.
See you later.
Right. I feel that the Pittsburgh Steelers might go in there with 3 running backs. I know Anthony McFarland has been on the team for a while, but I think he's a guy that, he didn't get, taken up last season when he was on the practice squad. So I think you can be safe to stash him on the practice squad without the fear of losing him. I think Master Teague is probably a guy that the Steelers liked last season. They like his ability. He's a tough kind of guy. And I think he's a guy that might be able to do something in special teams. So I have 3, and those guys being Najee, Warren, and Teague. What are your thoughts on the running back room?
Well, I saw Master Teague in training camp last year, and I liked some of the things I saw out of him. The guy just couldn't stay on the field.
Right. Yeah, no, you're right. That's exactly true. He ended up going down with an injury and couldn't stay on the field. You think he'll, if healthy, you think he'll make it on the team?
He's got a chance. I think that they're going to give him opportunity over preseason if he's healthy. Benny Snell's not even under contract.
No, yeah, Benny Snell's not.
So Benny Snell's gone, ladies and gentlemen. Benny Snell's gone. He won't be missed either. He won't be missed. He didn't move the needle on anything for anybody. So, yeah, those 3. It wouldn't be surprised if they decide to bring Anthony McFarland will get another opportunity. Wouldn't be surprised if they decide to bring in another running back over the summer to kind of fill stuff out. You never know if some of these bodies or camp guys get hurt. So as of now, I think 3 might be the number there. Fullbacks, I think Derek Watt's gone. I don't think he's coming back.
Yeah, Derek Watt, he's probably not coming back.
I don't really think they need to bring him back ultimately. I think that you can do fullback was never really a position the Steelers utilized much anyway. But with Darnell Washington in there now and Connor Hayward on the team, I don't really think they need a quote unquote solidified fullback.
I agree 100%. I agree 100%.
Yeah.
And so with that said, let's move over to the tight end room. So you got Pat Freiermuth, Darnell Washington, Zach Gentry, Connor Hayward, and somebody named Rodney Williams. And so hey, there's got to be people filling in for the 90. I think Williams? They still have. Yeah.
Oh my God.
And so I think the top 4 here, Pat Freiermuth, Gentry, Washington, and Hayward, end up making the team. I think Hayward ends up being that fullback when needed. Possibly just more. I think he's going to take a lot of those screens that Zach Gentry got for some reason.
Yeah.
They thought that was a good idea. I think he's going to end up getting those.
That's just,
and so,
I don't know.
So I think this is going to be the deal. I think it's going to be Pat and then Darnell Washington. if he's healthy. I know he had some issues, and that's probably the reason why he fell in the draft. But if he's healthy, those two guys are going to be a force. I'm excited about this room.
Yeah. I think all of them be on the team.
Zach Gentry, he's a he's a developmental piece that's developed quite nicely. He was a former quarterback, so he can see the room from a different perspective. But he's not the blocker that Darnell Washington is. Maybe he's just slightly better than Pat Freiermuth, but they're pretty comparable when it comes to that. When it comes to catching the ball, Pat, in my opinion, is probably the top guy here just because he's done it already in the NFL. Darnell Washington, you can't take away what he did in college, and the fact that even though he didn't get the targets, it was more because of a lot of the ball had to go to a lot of different places. So where do you see the tight end room at here?
Mm-hmm. Well, to answer comment, Joseph, Snell and Watt aren't on the team. They're not under contract, so we're not factoring in either one of those players.
Right.
Those guys aren't even under contract.
Yeah, I don't. If they do come back, I think that that'd be the only value you'd get.
So we're not gonna talk about players that are still free agents on the team of them possibly come back. We're going by what's on the roster right now, and if guys come back or they sign guys over the summer, then that's how it goes. But we're going by right now. For the tight end spot, I think that's how it's going to be. I think all of them are going to be on the team. I think all those guys will make it. So you got three tight ends, whatever you want to do with Connor Hayward there as a utility type guy or whatever you want to do there. No, you're good, dude. You're good. There's some people that might not realize that they're not under contract at all. So we're not factoring in anybody that's a free agent or could possibly come back. It's just kind of really where things are at right now.
Right.
The thing with Connor Hayward too is that I think he impressed some people last year with his catching ability, with some of his hands. So I don't want him, and I don't think he will. I don't want to see him just regulated to fullback to play that position. Like, utilize him in different whatever. And like, I can't really come up with all different kind of scenarios during games, but you got to be able to, like, he can be a valuable guy at different times. And he showed that last year. Like, he made some really big catches, really big plays in the over the middle of the field. So, yeah, I agree with you, dude. I think those tight ends, I think you'll see the 3 tight end room, and then they'll kind of move Connor Hayward back and forth a little bit.
I agree. And sticking with the weapons on the team, and we're going to go into probably the first one that's going to need some more discussion is going to be the receiver room. So right now, first and foremost, I think the Steelers are going to end up probably keeping 6 receivers again. On the roster right now is Deontay Johnson, George Pickens, Allen Robinson, Calvin Austin, Gunnar Olszewski, Miles Boykin, Anthony Miller, Bradley Jamarcus, Cody White, Dan Chesney, Des Fitzpatrick, and Jordan Byrd. Let's just kind of focus in on Anthony Miller, Austin, Gunnar, Miles, Deontay, George, and Allen, because I think those are the guys that will eventually make the team. I don't really foresee any of the other guys taking over or anything. Any of those guys you see that are in danger of not making this team, that's 7 receivers right there.
All right. So DJ, Pickens, Allen Robinson, Calvin Austin, Anthony Miller. Who were the other 2 you said?
Gunnar Olszewski and Miles Boykin.
Miles Boykin. Okay. I think Gunnar Olszewski has a chance to be on the hot seat. I think if he's somebody that doesn't bounce back over this summer, and if he's around during preseason and he's not really being the guy that they would like him to be, I'm sure they'll probably give him another opportunity as being a returner, but I think he might be on the hot seat. Last year, he could have been on the hot seat.
Should have been.
Yeah, should have been. Miles Boykin, I think with him, like, as your 6 wide receiver, he's you need some guys that can make some plays on special teams. I think he's going to make the team. I really do. Anthony Miller, I think, is a little bit of a wild card. He's gotten hurt and stuff like that, so he's just got to make the most of his opportunity. He's played in the NFL for a little while now. As the 5th wide receiver, I don't see anything wrong with that, but he's got to make the most of his opportunities this year, or else I think that he might not get another chance.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you. I feel that Gunner's probably on the hottest seat here. His position last year was just basically supposed to be a punt return, kick returner, and he really wasn't that great. In fact, he wasn't the best punt returner, kick returner on the team. Sims was, and out of the players that were allowed to play the position.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not sure if there's a punt returner, kick returner here. I mean, we're all going to look at Calvin Austin because of his speed, but I'm not sure he did that in college very often.
Yeah, I wish Steven Sims came back.
Yeah, I
I
would have
love
liked
what he did on the returns.
Right. Yeah. No, I did too. And when it comes to Miles Boykin, I think he's a fantastic gunner, and that's probably going to keep him on the team. And
Steven Sims is the fifth wide receiver on this team. Would have been great.
Yeah, he did pretty good. He did some good things. He flashed a little bit. Unfortunately, he decided to go. But I think Calvin Austin is going to be given the first opportunity to return punts and kicks. And if it doesn't work out, then that's the only way I can see a Gunnar Olszewski returning is if they can't find anybody else to return the ball. Who do you think is going to be the slot receiver out of these guys?
Oh, man. I think out of all those receivers, I think Allen Robinson's going to get the most looks
at the slot,
the inside slot. Yeah, I do. I think one thing that could be interesting is even a guy like not too often, but maybe if you have I know Darnell Washington's not known for his type of pass catching abilities compared to some other things that he really thrives in. But let's say you have him and Pat Freiermuth on the field together. Maybe they put Pat Freiermuth in the slot a little bit.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, that's something. I'm not saying that he's going to not that he would be there all the time. He's going to do his thing and play his normal position. But if they want both of them out there and whatever set of receivers you want out there, maybe they kind of mismatch a little bit. So I don't think there's going to be a solidified slot receiver on the team. I think that you're going to see a few guys kind of move around, whether it's Calvin Austin being able to utilize his speed across the field. Maybe Freiermuth could be, like I said, an option here or there. But I think out of the receivers, I think you'll see in terms of percentage of snaps there, I think Allen Robinson will probably be the guy.
I agree. I think he's going to be him and Calvin Austin that'll be working a lot in the slot. Calvin's a little bit smaller of a guy, and so you kind of get concerned there with durability and things of that nature of taking hits over the middle from bigger linebackers and safeties. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, I think those are going to be the two guys. For me, I'm looking forward to a heavy set, especially in the red zone, where you can have the opportunity of bringing in a, George Pickens on the outside. And even if you want to go real big, George and Miles Boykin on the outside, Darnell Washington and Pat Freiermuth, and then hit him with Najee, you got some very, very big gentlemen there that can do some damage. And,
you do.
If the opposition comes in, with some bigs, then you spread them out. I mean, Najee Harris proved he can catch the ball with his hands. I think all these guys can. And if they bring it in their smaller package, nickel or dime, then you just run it down their throat, and you get those big bodies on these guys. But that I'm looking forward to that. I hope that ends up being a formation throughout at some point to see that many big bodies on the field at once.
There's no excuses for Matt Canada, dude. There's really none. You have some of the best young talent all across the league. If you can't get it figured out in your third year, I don't know what to tell you. I really don't. And he's my biggest concern in the sense of the offense being held back. So I hope that he can make a jump. I hope that he can really sit down with the one offensive assistant. I forget his name that they brought in. I hope they can sit down together and hope that he can really take a jump forward in terms of some of his him just sitting with the offense, and whether if it's just play calling, if it's certain formations, if it's recognizing Glenn Thomas, recognizing whatever defense is out there and who he can utilize better, what type of calls he can utilize. There's a variety of things that you can do with these guys. How many times did we see last year where George Pickens in the first half was, for example, targets were going his way. He was beating whoever was on him, and the offense was flowing through him or if it was a certain receiver, and then they just go away from him for the rest of the day.
Right.
Like, how often do we see that? How often did we see run, pass? How often were defenses calling out the predictability of what play calls were being called?
Well, I'll be honest, though. We have to look at who was on the field as well. You have to, not to cop or steal a Tomlinism, but, when you have red paint, you paint the barn red. When you have a rookie quarterback, going into the season, not your starter, your third guy, in some instances, and then he's put in at the most difficult time of the season without that full off season of being the guy, I don't really think you can open up the playbook too much. And so I think you do end up becoming a little bit.
If it's at a point, though, defenses are literally yelling out to each other. They know the plays. That's a problem. I don't care who's quarterback. I don't care who's in there. I don't care what rookie you got. That's a problem.
Well, I mean, Coach T.
I don't care. I don't think there's any excuse for that. I don't think there's any excuse for that.
Coach T. also said there was many a times that the Bengals knew what the play was before this season, before Canada, and they weren't yelling things out because it was working. It's one of those situations where, they knew what was going to come at them, but they couldn't stop it or do anything about it. And he also went on to say, we knew what the Bengals were doing, and that was in referencing to the Bengals yelling it out, that they knew what the Bengals were doing in certain situations, but unfortunately they just, that's the way football is. Now, when it comes to the passing concepts and things of that nature, yeah, I agree. It definitely needed some improvement and maybe a little bit of the reins lightened up. Now, I also wonder, how much of what happened last season was Mike Tomlin handcuffing, your offensive coordinator and your quarterback. I mean, when Kenny Pickett comes out and throws a few interceptions right away, I wouldn't be surprised if Mike Tomlin shut it down, said, hey, we have a great defense. We're going to be in games. Let's play this smart. Let's protect the ball. Let's not do anything crazy. And we'll win some games doing it this way. Now, this year, there's no excuse. You have a full off season with your quarterback. You have an offense that's going to be tailor-made for Kenny Pickett, as everything that was implemented during the development portion of football, which is training camp and preseason and all that, was tailor-made for Mitch Trubisky. They were running things that they felt were his strengths, not so much necessarily Kenny Pickett's strengths. This year, they're going to be able to have that opportunity. So that's why I say there is no excuse for Matt Canada this year. It's either you put up or get out, because there's no other excuse. You have a solid team. You have an offensive line, which we're about to get into, and that is, in my opinion, being built to be one of the better offensive lines in the league. You have some massive guys that can move, and that was one of the things that I had mentioned, going into last season and going into this year, that they really didn't have guys that could pull or make their way down the field. A guy like Broderick Jones is a guy that can pull and be in those situations where he's going to get in front of screens without having to cheat and leave early because of athleticism. So with the guys that were on the team last year, if they would have waited and gotten in front or gotten to their position, it would have been too late, and those plays would have blown up. And what I'm referring to are the screens. And we had a lot of players downfield illegally because they weren't athletic enough to get out there in time. Mm-hmm. Broderick Jones he's a guy that can. I'm not sure about Isaac Seumalo. I'm not familiar with his mobility, but Jones is. Now, with Seumalo, who's wearing 73, I think he's going to remind a lot of people of the last guy that wore 73, and Ramon Foster, as being a big, nasty guy in the middle and not, taking anything from anyone. So I'm looking forward to that aspect of it. I think that this offensive line is going well, but let's take it piece by piece. We have the tackles. You have Broderick Jones, Dan Moore, Chuks Okorafor, and Clark LaRaven. Any of those guys, who are locks there? You think any of them might be trade bait? Any of them might not make the team? What are your thoughts?
Well, hold on real quick. Aquatic about Benny Snell. I don't know if you're referring to if you think he'll make the team or not. He's not under contract, so unless you think that he's going to come back, he's not on the team right now. Just letting you know. Yeah. So we look at the tackles. I don't know. Do they want to keep two? Do they want to keep Dan Moore and Clark there? I think it's really going to kind of depend on what LaRaven Clark does over the summer. But I've seen teams keep four.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think anybody's going to trade for Dan Moore or LaRaven Clark at all. Chuck Okorafor, I don't see why you would move off of him. So, I don't know. It just really depends if they want to keep 3 or 4 tackles. I think if they want to keep 4, then that might be your 4 right there. If they want to keep 3, and then maybe they have somebody as well that can kind of be a utility, like Spencer Anderson, who they drafted in Maryland. Yeah. Like he can play almost really any position. Yeah. I guess they don't love him, man. I guess they don't love him anymore. So like Spencer Anderson, who they drafted in the 7th round, he's going to get opportunity. So you have some guys there. You have some options there in terms of who you want there as a swing guy, who you want there as depth, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, Herbig, I think they'll probably keep him a little bit more interior, but yeah, I think they have some decent depth back there. So I think it's just going to come down to who plays better, who outperforms who's really putting in the work versus who might not be. So I don't know. I don't really know who's going to be the tackles, but I think everybody there is going to have an opportunity ultimately to fight for a spot.
See, for me, I think I think Broderick is going to be your left tackle, come week 1.
No
I don't think
they're
going to give it to him during training camp. I think they're going to make him work for it. But by the time week 1 comes around, I think he's going to be your left tackle. I think they're going to allow Chuck Okorafor and Dan Moore to battle it out for the right tackle position. And then whoever doesn't survive that battle will end up being the swing guy. Now, my thoughts are maybe perhaps if one of these guys loses that battle and there's an injury somewhere else, you pick up that phone if somebody calls. Somebody else loses a tackle and they want to check out, Dan Moore or Chuck Okorafor, whoever loses that battle. I think you pick up that phone because you have a guy in Darnell Washington that can replace that swing tackle position. He's a guy that can, is big enough and strong enough to block, and it's not so obvious what the play is about to, be when you have a guy like, Zach Banner coming in so often as a tackle eligible. Everybody knew what the play was going to be. And if it was some sort of pass option, you had one less option out there. Even though he ran routes, he did run routes. He never got the ball thrown to him. And so, I can see, but that's going to be a decision you don't make until about the time that the season starts. If somebody calls and, and that's bearing that you're injury free as well. And so given the fact that this team stayed together so well last year because of durability and thinking that this is going to be the same thing this year, that you're not going to have any injuries on the offensive line, I think would be a little bit naive. A lot of the reason why they didn't have injuries last season, especially early on, is because they weren't on the field. It was 3-and-out city early on.
Yeah.
And so you got to be on the field to get banged up.
Yeah, it was.
And so, I don't think that's going to be the case this year. I think this is going to be a very dominant team, and this is going to be a team that's going to be able to hold on to the possession of the ball, similar to what they did in the second half of the season. And so I can see them being on the field quite a bit. I do think they're going to go in there with 3 tackles. I don't think that they're going to go in there with 4. But let's move into the interior. So, left guard, probably going to be Seumalo, center Cole, and right guard, you're looking at James Daniels. Behind them is where it gets kind of interesting. And I'm just going to pull up the guys that have interesting names here. You're looking at Kevin Dotson, Spencer Anderson, Nate Herbig, and the great Kendrick Green.
Yeah.
I think Green is gone. I mean, he's good as gone.
Bounce back season, man.
I mean, off the floor, maybe.
Yeah, off the floor. Yeah, no, he's probably gone. He's probably gone. Hold on, Builder's Life, Sims with the Texans. Yeah, we know that. We're talking about why we wish he was still with the team. There's a reason why 53 aren't suited. Competitive advantage. I understand that aspect of it. I just think that I don't know. Just my opinion. I like to see him do a couple things differently than what they do. So I don't really care about Labriola. I think that guy's a joke. But yeah, so I like I think they have good depth on the offensive line, dude. I do. I really do. So you got your 5 starters, more Spencer Anderson. They'll probably maybe use him at both spots just to kind of see what they think fits best. Because he can do both. So he'll get opportunity. Clark, Herbig will be there. And I don't know. I don't know. Kendrick Green, we know is probably going to be the odd man out. Probably should have been cut last year, but whatever. There's some years where you look at offensive line depth and it's just bad. It's just bad. And like what you said is that probably a big reason why they stayed healthy is in terms of probably lack of being on the field, lack of terms of snaps, in terms of whatever, because we know how the Steelers offense was really throughout the entire season. So it's hard to kind of replicate a season where your offensive line is that healthy like that. But when you have quality guys and decide to bring some quality guys in to help fill out your offensive line, then you have some things you can work with. If somebody's out a few games, because it goes a long way. I don't care what like depth really in so many positions goes such a long way. So I like their O-line. We know it took a nice jump last year, and I think they're primed to take another one because we know from 2019 to last year, other than James Daniels, Mason Cole a little bit, they didn't use any really draft capital aside from signing those 2 guys. They didn't really use draft capital at all on high-end offensive linemen throughout those years.
Right.
So there was no first, second round pick on any of those guys. So now this year it changed a little bit, and I think that they have the chance in terms of not even just this season, but going forward, like they can have something good there.
I agree. For me, I think it's going to be the top 6 guys there that are going to make the team. I think Kevin Dotson might be a guy that gets shopped around too, especially if Sayamalu ends up being a guy. You have Nate Herbig, who I think can play both sides. So you have your backup, and also Anderson as well. I think he becomes your J.C. Hassenauer. I think he's going to be primarily, though, backing up the center position. I know that there was reports and things of that nature that the Steelers saw him as a possible future starter.
Yeah.
But you say that with every player that you draft.
No, of course you do.
You know, you don't go in there without that expectation. Now, he did have some, I think he was like second team, all team or whatnot in his college league. And, he did some good things. I think the problem was that he wasn't focused in on one position. They had him moved around everywhere. And so when you do that, you end up not becoming you become a jack of all trades, master of none kind of guy. Kevin Dotson has been a guy that there should not have been a position battle last training camp with Kevin Dotson and Kendrick Green. Yet there was, and I think that had more to do with, I just don't know if the front office there or Coach T are too high on Kevin Dotson, whether it's because of, the reports that came out earlier in his career of not being prepared after his rookie season for the season, his second year, whether, a lot of people took it as a physical thing. He put out workouts. I don't think that was the case. I think it had more to do with the playbook type of situation. And then also he wasn't recovering or recuperating or treating his body correctly and ended up getting, having an injury that should have lasted a couple of weeks, ended up being a season ender for him that second year. And so, I think it was a high ankle sprain. And so, or an ankle sprain in general. I think he might be a guy that's also could be pushed out. He's going into his last season. So there is that possibility that he
there is.
That he ends up not making the team as well.
Yeah. There's guys in there he's going to be fighting with over the summer.
Right. And I really like Nate Herbig. And Nate Herbig is a guy that played with the Eagles. He was under Andy Weidl. And Andy Weidl likes him. He thought he could be a guy that could be a starter in the future. He's a young guy too. I think he's only like in his mid-20s, like 24 years old. And so I'm really excited about this offensive line. I think this is probably the most improved room when it comes to the entire team, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And
absolutely. there's a lot that people should like about, their offensive line, and but the big thing is as I said, the quality depth, because we saw Mason Cole go down a little bit last year.
Mm-hmm.
There were a couple times he went down a little bit, and
Right.
if the Steelers are going to have more of a productive offense, you're probably gonna see a couple guys get a little bit more banged up than what happened last year.
Mm-hmm.
So having some quality guys there, depending how things go over training camp and in the preseason, and who's clicking, who's not clicking, that's just really an important aspect. And let's just say if I was Najee Harris, I'd be very happy.
Yeah. Najee and Kenny both. I mean, this offensive line, they've gotten big, they've gotten nasty.
Yeah.
And I think, when you look at what the Eagles were able to do last season when it came to their tackles, they left their tackles on an island more than any other team. The Pittsburgh Steelers helped their tackles third most in the league. And I think that tells you something. That tells you that they didn't trust the tackles, and it also tells you that they limited themselves when it came to what they were able to do, because they had to protect their tackles so much. And so going into this year, upgrading that position, upgrading the offensive line as a whole, I think they've done a great job. This is going to be, in my opinion, one of the stronger rooms on the team, if not the strongest room in the team right now.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
And that goes with depth as well. Yeah, that goes with depth as well, because you have on the defensive side, you have the defensive front line, which is pretty stout, but there's some questions behind your starters, and we'll start off with the defensive tackles and the defensive ends. So we obviously have Captain Cam Hayward, Larry Ogunjobi, DeMarvin Leal, Armand Watts, Isaiah Loudermilk, and Jonathan Marshall. I don't know who that guy is.
Whoever that is.
What do you think about Isaiah Loudermilk? Do you think he's a guy that makes this team?
It's possible he's one of the cut guys, man. It is. There are some good things he did in year one. He's going into year 3. Clearly, there wasn't really quite enough he did for the Steelers to ultimately want to put him in a rotational type situation last year. Definitely possible. When you're looking at the starters, Cam, Ogunjobi, possibly Keanu Benton, that can definitely be your starters right there. DeMarvin Leal, whatever they decide to do with him. They brought in the one guy. What was the one guy's name that they brought in from the Chargers?
That was Fiocco, but he's a nose tackle.
Okay. So even him, he's going to get opportunity.
Right.
Yeah, Loudermilk, he might just he might be someone. He probably thinks that he's got might play that. I don't know. He might have a little mentality of an underdog type guy. So we'll see. We'll see how hard he works, and if he's able to beat out a couple guys, and Steelers like seeing what he's doing, and if he's someone they think that they can rely on in certain spots, then he might get an opportunity. Armand Watts as well. I don't know. I think when it comes to their starters, I think that they have a pretty good starting group on the defensive line. When it comes to the other guys, I think really a lot of these other guys are on similar territory level, and it's going to come down to really who. Again, one of those things you see a lot of positions come down to over training camp, preseason. So, like, there's really with their depth, their defensive line, like there's no one that like sticks out in the sense of like, oh yeah, dude, he's gonna be like the fourth guy. I think all these guys are on similar playing field, and I think all of them, it's gonna come down to let the best man win. That's what it's gonna come down to the defensive line depth, 100%. I think all these guys are on even playing field in terms of competing for backup spots.
For sure. The only way I can see Loudermilk or a possible avenue that I see Loudermilk making it is if Leal gets pushed out as to an edge. He was a tweener. He was a guy that I think, coach was asked about him being possibly out there on the edge just because there isn't really a lot behind TJ and Highsmith. But before we get there, I think that's probably the only route. But before we get there, I want to talk about nose tackle. I don't think they're going to go in with more than 2. I think you're seeing, Keanu Benton, and you're seeing Brendan Fiocco. I think Martavis Adams might be the odd man out in that situation.
He as well might be one as well. He could.
Because he's not that stopper kind of guy. He's got a little bit of pressure to him, and he's a little bit of agility, but he's not that nose tackle, big body guy that you want in there that's going to occupy space and make teams run around you. Like Keanu Benton, he's a big dude, over 300 pounds, 6'4", I believe. He's a massive guy. So is Brendan Fihoko. I'm excited about those two guys. I think that Martavius Adams, he was on the practice squad with the New Orleans Saints when the Pittsburgh Steelers picked him up. I think that, he's a guy that can be stashed on the practice squad here without worry of loss. To the outside linebacker position, this is the one where I think that the Steelers are lacking a little bit still. You have TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, and then behind them you have Nick Herbig, who I'm not entirely sure is going to stay an outside linebacker with his size. 6'2", 240 pounds is not ideal for that position. You also have a Quincy Roche. And so, he was.
I feel like that guy's been on the team for like the last 5 years.
He's been off and on, man. He's been off and on. The Q from Q from the U or something like that?
Yeah.
And so I think they need to bring in another guy. There's been some rumors of Kyle Van Noy might be Steelers might be a landing spot for him. I would like that. Somebody who can come in on a pinch, somebody who has experience, and somebody that can put up numbers. I think he's gotten at least 5 sacks every year for the last 5 years or so. And so that's more than what the Pittsburgh Steelers have gotten out of any combined outside linebacker not named TJ Watt or Alex Highsmith. And so, to get that kind of production on limited terms or limited time when these guys do need a breather, I think that's a great option. And plus, right now, if any of these guys go down or they just need a breather, the drop-off in talent is huge.
Yeah.
And that's not something, in my opinion, that it's not a good look. It's not a good feeling. So I think they're going to bring in somebody. But with these guys, Quincy Roche, Nick Herbig, I think Nick makes the team being a 4th rounder. He's pretty much solidified to being on this team. Quincy Roche might be a guy that finds himself back on the practice squad, especially if they bring in another body. What are your thoughts on the outside linebacker position?
Yeah, they definitely should look to add to it over the summer. Probably just going to kind of see what they got, let guys do what they got to do. And I think that I think there's a high possibility they add to it. There's some veteran guys out there that you can use as your 3rd or 4th edge guy. And we know that really hurt the Steelers last year. Like, as great as TJ Watt is, injuries are going to happen. Freak injuries, stuff of something that if there's a player that's got a history, whatever. So Nick Herbig, kind of see what they want to do with him. Quincy Roche, no one really cares, honestly. I don't really think Quincy Roche is ultimately much of anything. Nothing personal, but this guy's bounced around and hasn't really solidified himself as a reliable guy. There's names out there. Kyle Vonoy, Justin Houston's out there. There's a few other veteran guys out there. I'd have to look at the list. So it wouldn't hurt if they feel like they got to look in that area. I don't think anybody would be mad if they bring in a veteran guy out there that's can come in from time to time and try to bring a little bit of production out there.
100%, man. I'm in the same boat.
Moving to the end. Do you think they extend Highsmith this summer or what?
Yeah, I think they get him. I think they get it done in training camp. I think they get it done in training camp, and I think it's, I don't think he's going to break the bank or anything like that. I don't think he's the kind of guy that's going to break the team for the bags either. And so,
you probably got a lot of teams out there that look at him like, all right, he's playing with TJ Watt, which probably helps a lot. And that's not me saying that. I'm saying just if he's a free agent, you're probably going to have teams look at that situation as well, rather than just him doing it on its own. You still can't take away from what he's done. He's progressed each year over his first 3 seasons, from when he filled in for Bud Dupree and from last year, the year before that. So I don't know. I'd like to see them get him done, because him and Watt, keeping them around for a long time would be great. David Prowlis, he's another guy as well. He'll get some opportunity as well. We'll kind of see what happens there with him. I don't know too much about him, but there's guys out there that they like and they want to kind of see how they do and give them some time, and then if they got to go a different route, they got to go a different route. So
for sure,
we'll see.
But
I hope TJ can stay healthy though all year.
But with Alex Highsmith, he does. There is the risk of him running into the Terrell Edmonds treatment, where I think Terrell Edmonds was a decent safety. Probably should have received more money than he ended up signing for both years, this offseason and last offseason. But because he's playing alongside a Minkah Fitzpatrick, and because you have pressure coming up front from a TJ Watt and a Cam Hayward, it might kind of, I'm assuming that, teams might look at that and say, your ability is a product of having great players around you, and perhaps maybe put in a situation where those players aren't there, you become a liability. And I'm not saying that about Alex Highsmith at all. But his sack production did drop quite a bit when TJ Watt wasn't on the opposite side, and the focus was on him.
Yeah, it did.
And so that could bode well for the Pittsburgh Steelers financially, especially if they take care of him this offseason. So it might behoove Highsmith to wait this season out and, take a bet on himself to see if he can, put up another double-digit sack year and earn that contract that he's wanting. So there's those possibilities. The inside linebacker position. So we have Cole Holcomb, Landon Robertson, Mark Robinson, and Tanner Muse. And so I think that you're going to probably see three of these guys. Maybe Tanner's he could be a special teams kind of dude and utilize more in special teams than being out there. Kind of like,
is he undrafted guy?
Yeah, I believe so.
Undrafted free agent.
Let me see. No, hold on. Let me see. No, he's 26. He was out of where did he come from? He was out of Clemson. Maybe he just played forever.
Yeah. I don't know. You can't go wrong with having some guys that can play special teams.
Right.
I think I don't really know all the linebackers on the market, but if there's somebody that they can find to come in certain pass situations, I think that would be great for them. What's funny is that you always call Landon Roberts a Landon Robinson.
I am. I'm bad, dude. Don't even start with me calling people the wrong name. There was so I have the Drunk Turkey show, right? And we had a lady call in, and we talk true crime, if you guys aren't aware of that, for those that don't watch. And we're covering the Idaho murders that occurred in Moscow, Idaho, at the University of Idaho, one of their off-campus houses. And we had a lady call us whose children attended school with the alleged person who's been arrested for the murders. And her name is Kim. I call her Pam, and I can't get it out of my freaking head. Like, and the thing is, once I get it in my head that your name is this, there's no, like, for instance, Vance McDonald. I have to think about his name. There's a street in my hometown called Vance Jackson. I called him Vance Jackson.
Vance Jackson.
That's how bad it is, man.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it is that bad. And so we have the Here We Go shows in. Yeah. And
Devin, what's up, man?
How's it going? We're doing good.
Body, what's up?
So when I get somebody's name wrong, and I do it more than once, if I don't
got my
correct
podcast
it right
name wrong.
I did, so I might be calling it in Hinesfield from now.
In Hinesfield, that might be it. Be honest, that might be it.
That might be it.
Unbelievable.
It happens, man. I have something called dyslexia, and that's one of the things that comes along with that. And so, some people got to deal with it.
Oh, most times, Daniel, we know what you mean.
Yeah, that's the good part. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, for sure.
Evan, real quick, if you're in the chat, let us know in the chat if on the 16th next Tuesday. Or no. Is Mark coming on the show on the 16th?
Mark's supposed to be on the show the 16th, but we can have a foursome. Sounds.
You want to talk about the schedule's coming out Thursday? You guys want to talk about the schedule on Tuesday?
Let's talk about the schedule on Tuesday.
Can kind of give
that'd be good.
Some maybe some predictions out there.
Hell yeah, dude! All too early
prediction.
Yeah, for sure. We'll do that, man. That'll be fun.
So Devin, if you're interested, let us know in the chat.
For sure. For
in
sure.
Acrisure site. Yeah.
In Acrisure.
Yeah. Yeah. I might have to update it to that, man.
You might get a
Oh,
sponsor
God.
out of it.
I could.
So let's transition to the defensive backs. So the cornerback room is going to be interesting. So you have Patrick Peterson, and I'm only assuming probably Levi Wallace to start. I'm thinking Joey Porter Jr. probably will be starting in certain packages and be eased into the rotation, so to speak, and probably be the starter opposite side of Patrick Peterson by the end of the season, or maybe even the midway point. But I think come week 1, he's going to be in there for sub packages and things of that nature. But behind those 3 guys, you have Akilla Weatherspoon, Corey Trice, James Pierre, and a couple of other guys that will probably make the practice squad.
Mm-hmm.
So what are your thoughts on Akilla Weatherspoon and James Pierre? Do you think these 2 guys end up making their way on the roster, or do you think that they're going to be out?
Real quick, Devin, it's May 16th. That'd be next Tuesday.
Yeah, next Tuesday.
Yeah, so just heads up, let us know in the chat, or you can message one of us if you'd want to come on the 16th and talk about the schedule and some predictions and stuff like that. All right, so looking at the cornerback room, I like their corner room. I don't really think that there's, because let's see, last year you had Cam, who's gone. You had Witherspoon. You had Levi. So really, it seems like Cam was really the only guy that's gone ultimately, correct?
Right, and he was gone, and you replaced him with a Patrick Peterson and a Joey Porter Jr.
So I'll be honest, I like their cornerback room better this year than I did last year, because going into last year, you had Cam, who I liked, and I think pretty much most fans wanted him back. But you had Cam, and then you had Levi and Witherspoon. Witherspoon wasn't good at all when he was on the field. We know that he was also injured a lot. Levi Wallace was kind of hit or miss with some injuries, but I thought he did some good things better than he didn't when he was on the field. So I like their cornerback room better now than what they had last year.
Right.
So Pearson's going to start. Levi Wallace, depending how they want to, whatever they want to do with Joey Porter, if he's going to be somebody that they feel comfortable starting right away, or like you said, kind of ease him in and then him kind of take over. We'll kind of see how they want to do with that. The slot thing has seemed like kind of been the talk for really all fans when it's come down to their cornerback room. What are they going to do with slot cornerback? They're going to play Levi Wallace there. Are they going to keep Millette there?
There's also Chandon Sullivan,
then Chandon Sullivan, who they signed. So there's Z in the chat. Lamar winning MVP. So Z, good to see you in the chat. Good to see you in the chat. How's the front desk? Let me know.
That's the funniest comment today.
Yeah, it's funniest comment. Yeah, I've been hearing Lamar MVP the last 3 years. So
yeah.
But yeah. So anyway, I don't know what they're gonna do with the slot, but overall, I think they have a pretty good room. I don't think their room is elite. I don't think that it's maybe up there with some other teams around the league. But overall, I think it's a room that can create turnovers again, like they did last year.
Right.
And I don't know. I think the slot situation is I think the slot situation is probably the biggest question. What direction are they going to go with that? What do you think they do there?
Well, I mean, Arthur Mollett, he did okay, but the fact that they brought in another guy for competition, they brought him in, during the draft or right after the draft. So that leads me to believe that they were probably focusing in on trying to get a slot, cornerback. It just didn't fall that way in the draft, and they ended up getting somebody like a Corey Trice, they got him at a pretty good value. And so, I don't know. I don't know who wins that battle, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Chandon Sullivan is a guy that Minnesota weren't too, what's the word I'm looking for? They weren't too, sad when he left. And so,
he wasn't very good last year at all for them. If you look at like passer rating against that guy and what he gave up and stuff like that, it's not really that encouraging. Real quick, so Devin says he's down for the 16th. Yeah, so we'll do the show Tuesday at like probably 6 Eastern or so like that, and we'll do it on my channel, and then all 4 of us will be on there.
That'll work for me.
So we'll
put it on there.
We'll do it. Sounds good, man. Sounds good. That'll be a good show. And then I'll message you and stuff like that. I'll send you the link to join and all that kind of stuff around that time. So it'll be good to have you back on, man. It'll be good to have you back on.
That'd be great.
Yeah. So I don't know, dude. I really don't know what they do. I think it could get to a point where it's again like the slot wide receiver situation, rotating guys in and out, what works, what's not working. I don't know if it gets to a point when Joey enters the starting rotation. And if they play Levi Wallace there a lot, I don't really know. I think you're just going to see a lot of stuff over training camp and in the preseason. You're going to see, okay, he's here, there, different guys in there, right? And just kind of studying up and just seeing what's working. What do they like the best? So I don't know. I think slot corner is a little bit underrated in the sense of its importance, like meaning that I think it's an important thing. So I don't know, dude. They got 3 guys right away that can compete for that position, but I could see it being a thing where they don't have a solidified guy for that.
Yeah, no, that's quite possible. I know that they talked to Patrick Peterson. He said he might move into the slot or in the inside.
Yeah, I don't know,
which is something
dude.
that he hasn't done before.
Like they're just going to move him around.
Yeah,
I think that he's going to play. I think he's going to play outside more than not. But yeah, like certain situations, I think they'll just move him around in certain situations. Yeah.
Yeah, that's quite possible. Very much so.
Yeah. And that might just help his longevity as well.
I agree. So last room
excited for him too.
The last room on the defensive side is going to be the safety room. So Fitzpatrick, Keanu Neal, and DeMonte KZ are, probably your locks here. The other guys that there's some question is going to be Trey Norwood. Is he going to not make the team? Is there Elijah Riley, a guy who came off and on the practice squad last year during, times of injury, and Miles Killebrew, who's a special teams ace.
Isn't he a free agent though? Is he under contract?
No, he's under contract.
Is he? Okay, good.
So he's
a guy you want to keep around.
Yeah, you want to keep him for your special teams. He's not really a contributor, or you really don't want him contributing. He
doesn't need to be though. Like having a special guy like that, he knows his role. He knows he's been able to make a living off of it, and having him is. I'm glad he's under contract because he's an important piece to their special teams.
Right. No, 100%. For me though, I think that you're looking at a guy like Trey Norwood, who I think this might be the year he ends up not making the team. He might be a guy that ends up finding his way on the practice squad, though. But I think that this is another position or another room that necessarily maybe this is probably the one position that when you look at the entire deal, it got worse than last year. I think Keanu Neal, is not.
I think a lot of people wanted Edmonds to come back, but I think with him, I'm pretty sure it was you and I talking about this, where it was another season where he wasn't getting really the offers he was probably expecting, and he took a cheap contract, 1-year deal with the Eagles, and I'm pretty sure it was you and I talking about like where he, I might be mistaken on this, but was it us talking about where, all right, he's playing as Domingo, let's go somewhere where I'm playing away from that and I'm making a name for myself.
Right. Yeah.
Was that us talking about that?
Yeah, that was us.
Okay.
And so,
I think that might what had been. The Steelers might have gave him a little bit more money, but he was like, "Hey, it's not cutting here." Yeah, they should bring back Xavier Gribble.
Yes. That made me laugh.
Oh man. How's Nick Boyle? Where's Boyle? Boyle in the egg.
Yeah. So, I think this is probably the one room where you have some pieces that came in that weren't exactly the same. I think like you lose Cam Sutton, you pick up a Patrick Peterson, you lose your entire, inside linebacker room. And you pick up some guys that, in my opinion, are significantly better than what Bush was able to bring on, or Spillane, or even Miles Jack, who was just riddled with injuries. Yeah. And so, this room here is one that I think maybe perhaps might be not as to the same quality as they were before. But when you look at some of the pieces they did bring in, like a Joey Porter Jr. in the draft, like a Keanu Benson in the draft, guys like that can apply pressure as well, with TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith up front. and an improved heartbeat as far as the middle linebacker room goes, I think that's going to relieve some of that pressure on those defensive backs, and thus they don't have to play to that level. So it may appear on paper that they've gotten better when all things are said and done, just because of the surrounding cast around them.
Yeah.
But so far, I mean, I think this is a very well built team, offensively and defensively, and I'm excited. I'm super excited.
Yeah. There's a lot of reason. I think really all Steeler fans should be excited about this season, and even their future going forward. I think really what they did in the draft, I think with where they're at as a team, how they've built their team over this offseason, I think that the window is ultimately creeping open. I think it's going to continue to open up as seasons go on.
True story, man. True story.
I do. I agree with that. Now, Z, real quick, if you're still in the chat, let us know in the chat if there's ever a time before the season you want to come on. We'll talk Steelers Ravens on here.
Let's do it.
Daniel. You and
yes,
Daniel.
Sir.
Let us know
and
in
then
the
when
chat
the Steelers, and we got to do that when the Steelers play the Ravens as well throughout the season.
Yeah, going into the Ravens week, I think that'd be fun to do. So let us know in the chat, Z, if it's something you'd be interested in.
As far as special
I'm excited
teams,
about this team, man. I am all around. I think when you look at defense, we know the Steelers defense has been expected to do a lot of good things over the last 4 years or 4 or 5.
Right.
Like, because we look at 2019, they were the best defense in the league all around. And 2020, they were a top 3 defense. 2021 was very disappointing season for them defensively. Even last year throughout the first half of the season, it was disappointing. Yeah, TJ Watt was out, but nobody was ultimately stepping up to the plate. Going into the second half of last year, they got better in terms of points allowed per game, sack production, everything like that. And they did lead the league in turnovers throughout the year, which was great. Credit to Terrell Austin. We know that he's always been a guy that's been a really key focus in on football secondary.
The one thing, though, I will say, though, about the defense last year in the early portions of the year, they weren't helped by their offense. The offense just
they weren't either.
Out.
So that's another thing you can add into it. I'm just saying the first half of the season is the defense wasn't overall good.
Right. Well, and I want to say a lot of that was due to injury. I mean, when you play 100 snaps, your first game against the Bengals, and you lose a TJ Watt, you start getting players going down with like Cam Hayward with an ankle and things like that because of how they're used. It's not going to bode well.
But yeah, so it's not saying that it wasn't good because everybody was on the field and everybody was ass. Like,
right.
Yeah, there's certain things going into it, but they weren't good. Like
nobody
was stepping up to replace TJ. The inside linebackers were terrible all last year.
Yeah.
And so that's what I mean. So then come the second half when guys were healthier and TJ was back, then we started to see a defense that we wish we saw in the first half.
Yeah, and they also started getting a complementary offense, that was holding on to the ball.
So now going into this year, and we always base this off of just you have to go in whenever anybody talks about season or teams expectations, stuff like that, you go into it with a healthy slate. But when you look at this year with the draft they had and a couple guys they brought in free agency, I think the Steelers will probably go back to being one of the better defenses in the league ultimately, and probably leading the league in sacks again if everybody's on the field.
I think so.
Offense, I think everybody should be encouraged offensively. Matt Canada's the biggest kind of
question mark.
He's the biggest question mark. And can he step up? Can he take a leap from last year? Can he utilize the talent the Steelers team have? Because they have one of the best. When you look at running back, receiver, tight end, they have one of the best groups all around the league when it comes to that combined. Yeah. So can he take advantage of that? Can he adjust and take a leap forward in year 2? I think a lot of people should be encouraged about him doing that, especially with what you saw toward the end of the season last year, the second half of the season. And that's ultimately what you wanted to see is that from your rookie quarterback. So there's a lot of things to be excited about this year. They're a team that can find themselves back on track throughout the year. They have a little bit of a more tolerable schedule this year. And I'm not somebody that likes to always paint the picture with the scheduling and stuff like that. Oh, they got such an easy schedule. They got such a hard schedule. But they do. When you look at it all around, they have a more tolerable schedule than they did last year. So there's certain factors in the sense that are either going to help their success or will derail it, depending how that goes. But overall, they have, I think, one of the better rosters in the AFC. I think they have a roster in terms of long term that they have key guys there long term. And that's what I meant where I think their window's starting to open up a little bit right now. And I think it will keep getting wider as the future goes on and stuff like that. So they've had a really good offseason, probably their best offseason / draft combined in quite a long time. So yeah, they have more expectations than they did last year, and hopefully they fulfill that. But I think all of us should be excited and encouraged about them fulfilling that.
I agree 100%. Like, yeah, this is gonna be. Man, I'm so excited. I can't wait for the schedule to be going out. Then rookie mini camp starts, and then there's a lull.
Daniel, how upset are you about Darnell Washington not getting number 0?
Oh, dude, I was pretty upset. I was already pre-ordering my jersey. What are you talking about?
Maybe get a custom one, number 0, and put Washington on the back.
I'm gonna put Mount Washington still on the back of that.
Yeah, you might have to
jersey.
Get a custom one. Sure will lock, my humble opinion. I hope so, man. I hope so. I think that wouldn't that be something? I think that would definitely be something if they really had a long run this year. That'd be fantastic.
That would be amazing.
I think it's a little annoying just how the Steelers don't want to give out the single digits like a lot of the other teams do. They're not the only team that does that. There's still a few other teams that are kind of like that. I don't know. Maybe it's kind of a rookie thing where they don't want them to kind of get in their own head about stuff. I don't know. I would have loved to seen Porter get 5 or 9. Washington get 0 would have been sick.
Pickens get 1.
Yeah, Pickens getting 1 would have been sick. So I don't know, dude. But yeah, there's a lot of things that all fans should be excited about this year. AFC North will be interesting. Really, the AFC in general got better. So, yeah, we'll kind of see really how it ultimately goes. I think that there's a lot of scenarios that can happen that people can have debates about and flip-flop teams around, blah, blah, blah. So it's good. It's a fun season. So if Steelers just stay remotely healthy throughout the year, they should find them exceeding expectations or meeting expectations, I think.
Aquatic Life asked me if my wife had the baby yet. No, not yet. It's gonna. So we have our baby. Yeah, we have her C-section scheduled for Thursday morning. So by Thursday afternoon, there will be another Steelers fan waving a little terrible towel. So
yeah, he or she better be wrapped in a terrible towel blanket.
She already has like 3 Steeler jerseys.
There you go.
We have matching TJ Watt jerseys already. So before I let you go, because we're getting a little bit long in the tooth, the last question I wanted to ask you, given the fact that the schedule's coming up, nothing behind it, no evidence or anything, who do you think is the Steelers home opener game going to be against?
Yeah, I was actually going to say this before we leave. I was actually going to say to the people in the chat, everybody in the chat right now, what team do you think the Steelers are going to open up against when the schedule gets released Thursday? And is it going to finally be a home game? Yes or no? I say the Steelers finally open up at home week 1, considering the Pirates will not be in town.
Right.
Nor do I think that ever should have been a concern.
Right.
But I think they finally get a home game after 7 or 8 years. And I'm going to say they play the Tennessee Titans at home week 1.
Nice. You know, I was on Steel Curtain Network yesterday. Me and Shannon White talked about this briefly. I'm going to maintain. I think it's going to be Jacksonville, the Jacksonville Jaguars at home. I think it's going to be a conference team, not so much a division team. You know, I know last year the home opener was against the Bengals, and they played the Browns a couple of times. And I think in between there they had the Giants one year. Giants was the COVID year. That was on the road. Yeah. So Z says Panthers on the road. They open up on the road again. I think that'd be kind of disappointing, but Carolina can live with it. Kelsey says Browns at home. Jennifer, Ravens at home. Devin says Steelers Browns week 1. Afton says Browns home. Browns home would be I'm not gonna lie, that would be a really big kickstart to the season. Oh yeah, dude.
That really would be.
Did you see where? So they had a list of quarterback ratings, and they had they had Deshaun Watson at number 10.
Yeah, that's a joke.
Quarterback.
I think that was CBS. Their whole entire list was terrible. I've seen like other networks and places, and like I've seen like Watson ranked it. They had him like at 20 or 18, 17. That's fine, dude. Other than like the 1 year where he threw 33 touchdowns and the Texans went 5-12. He hasn't really done anything remotely groundbreaking.
Elite worthy. Yeah.
He's always just kind of been a B+ quarterback. I'm not going to down the guy. I think throughout his time with the Texans, he was somebody that you could look at and say, yeah, he has the potential and the ability to work himself up the ranks. But he's always, from what we've seen, he's always kind of been a B+ quarterback, which isn't a bad thing. There's a lot of quarterbacks in the NFL that are good or pretty good, but aren't in that upper echelon of other quarterbacks. So there's nothing wrong with having a B+ type quarterback, but that's kind of really what he's been. And can he reach a higher level? I think it's possible, but I don't think anybody should be basing anything off of, oh, well, dude, look what he did before here. He didn't really do much of anything that would warrant you to put him in a higher spot. So I don't know. That's just my opinion. I don't think he's a top 10 quarterback. I think anywhere, if you want to put him anywhere between 15 and 20 right now, I think that's where he's at.
No, I would agree with that.
And he played 6 games last year, and then he missed like a full year and a half. So,
yeah, I will say the only, and I brought this up to Shannon yesterday. I was like, I was at the Steelers Cleveland Browns game last year, the season ender, and for one reason or another, he sure is slippery, and they had a hard time getting him to the ground. But outside of that, I didn't think he was elite with his hands or with his arm. No. I saw that and I was like, oh man, this list is already a joke. And then I saw all the rookies go ahead of, like Kenny Pickett, and I was like, man, Kenny Pickett was able to show last year that he can win games.
Yeah, I don't really understand ranking rookies at all. I don't think anybody ever should, because they haven't done anything.
Right.
I don't think there's anything wrong if you want to rank AFC quarterbacks. I think if you have Kenny around 11 or 12 in the AFC quarterback right now, I think that's fine. And I've seen a lot of people have them there. I think if you're going to do all around the league, I think somewhere in the low 20s is fine. I think somewhere in the low 20s is fine. Because you got to take into account some other quarterbacks that have been in the league for a while that ultimately haven't really progressed and are probably just going to be kind of the way they are, rather than with Kenny. Rookie last year had a pretty good overall second half, going 7-2, and improved his play. And so if you're going to look at upward trajectory, yeah, I think that's fine putting him above there. And then based on how he finishes the year, I think a lot of people would expect him to take even another leap forward.
Wow. Congratulations, Jennifer. This is going to be the last.
There you go. There you go. New Steeler fan, Malachi. Welcome to planet Earth, Malachi. Welcome to Steeler Nation. And hopefully you are able to understand what is going on come week 1.
Yep. Congratulations, Jennifer. I'll be in the same boat here in a couple of days, congratulating a new Steeler fan, my own little one. So that said, do you have any final words, Nate, before we let everybody out?
Not really too much, guys. Not really too much. You guys can follow my channel. For anybody that's new here, anybody new in the stream, you guys can follow my channel right there at InHindSight. I usually try to upload, if not weekly, it's usually every couple weeks I try to upload. And then aside from Daniel and I, we go live on flip-flopping each other's channels for this podcast every week as well. So give out a follow. You guys can also follow my, as you guys know, Z in the chat. We have our own podcast where it's not really branded off anything. We'll kind of talk about whatever, sports or entertainment, video games, different kind of stuff like that. So if there's certain stuff you guys are interested that we might talk about, feel free to follow that. Link will, or if you go on my channel, it's like the different links to it or in my bio if you guys are interested. So him and I are almost at 60 subs, which is pretty good. So we're just trying to grow it just like anything else. So seeing you guys over there is great. We eventually want to get to a point where we can start going live and start implementing people into the show based on whatever we're talking about. So, but yeah, so good to see everybody in the chat, all you guys who are here, all you guys who are new. And then we will be back next Tuesday on my channel. It's going to be me, Daniel, Mark Davison will be back, and Devin from the Here We Go show. So it will be a four-person show next Tuesday on my channel, guys. So you don't want to miss that. We'll be talking about the Steelers schedule, maybe some predictions, what we think about the AFC North overall. So you guys won't want to miss that. That will be a pretty good show.
For sure. Star-studded. And don't forget, guys, I give away 2 tickets to a regular season game to a subscriber. So if you're not subscribed, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make sure you like the video. It gets the algorithm going. And so with that, without further ado, we appreciate everybody that made it tonight or today. We'll see you next time. Peace.
And we're still here.
Yeah, we're still here. I should have just